Hey everyone, this is our second show of the Tokenomics podcast. The last one was on Ethereum, and this time, we kind of had something else planned, but then we switched that because we talked about this principal agent theory and how that relates to DAOs, and we were in general quite interested in DAOs and how they function and what's in store with these DAOs. So, that's what we're going to talk about. Maybe Jason, do you want to walk us through the principal agent theory?
Hey, Flo, sure. So I don't know if I can give you a 100% academic definition, right, of what this principal PAL agent theory is. But in essence, it's when a transaction occurs and there's an information asymmetry on both sides, and when incentives might not be aligned. So this happens a lot in human-to-human transactions. So let's say you were to go repair your car, right? In this case, you're the owner of the car, so you're the principal, the owner, right, of this item, and the mechanic would be your agent, where he tells you, "Hey, Flo, give me some dollar bills, and I will fix your car and make sure it's good." Right? But in this case, the agent has more knowledge than the average owner of a vehicle, right? So there's this principal agent issue at this time because, first of all, you have an information asymmetry. So if the mechanic says you need to change all four wheels when or all four tires when you've got one flat, right? You don't know if he's legit or not, right? You go like, can I just change one tire? And then he goes and says, yeah, well, if you just change one, then the profile's all different. When you jam on the brakes, it's wet, you're going to skid off to the side. And you go like, do I need to trust him? Okay, yeah, I guess I don't want to crash, so okay, I'll buy all four, right? But you go away from that transaction feeling a little bit uneasy, right? Because of the information asymmetry, and secondly, because there's an incentive misalignment. He's happy for you to pay more. You're wanting to pay as little as possible, right? So in nearly all things where there's interactions or transactions between humans, vast majority of them, you will face this problem. Whether you're going to buy food from a food court or somebody is cooking that meal for you, you don't know what he's put into that meal, but you want a good meal, but it goes on and on. You
also
work
don't
in
want
a
to cook
big
it yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't want to pay too much, but the guy's saying like, yeah, hey, but if you don't want to pay for my $12 souvlaki, go pay $5 down the road, and it's probably filled with chemicals that you don't want to eat, right?
Yeah, we've got to trust him some
So,
way. Yeah.
so then in economic systems, sometimes this manifests by people just choosing not to take part in the transaction at all, right? So maybe Florian says, hey, my car, the mechanic told me I need to come and change the oil every 10,000 kilometers, right? If not, I might run into problems. But I think he's just scamming me. So Florian goes, I'm just gonna go whenever my car blows up, right? And then Florian somewhere driving in between Perth and Sydney, and then his car blows up, and then he's got this massive cost. And this cost to the whole economic system is a bad one because the mechanic didn't earn his money. Now you've got a broken car. You're wasting a lot of time. Somebody needs to come and tow that car away. And it all started because there was this lack of transparency, let's say, in the transaction, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And like, how can you get around that transparency?
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping we can talk about, right? You need to take away that asymmetry information somehow, and make sure that incentives are more aligned somehow. So let's go back to there are many ways. So let's go back to the fixing the car problem, right? So basically the issue is Florian needs a car to drive around, or a bicycle, or whatever, right? You need something to move you around. And the thing is, you own the car, but you need it fixed. So there are certain things that the market has come up with to help. So maybe instead of buying a car, you lease a car, right? So when you lease the car, your incentives are in a way a bit more aligned with the leaser of the car,
From
because you
perspective of
both
keeping the car maintained. Yeah.
correct, right? And then you know your costs straight up front. You know that's all you need to pay, and then you can then have a better, let's say,
You can
less
have more
information
transparency,
asymmetry.
right? Because they tell
Correct.
you like this is the price. Like from a price perspective, you have more transparency. You know,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly, and you know that the guy with more information, which is, let's say in this case you're leasing a car from the manufacturer itself, they know way more than cars, and now they're on your side, right?
Yeah,
You anything goes wrong, give them a call, they'll come pick it up, right?
yeah, yeah.
And then let's say you're going to buy used cars. There's also this issue because the salesman will know this car's a lemon, this car's the best, but they're both priced. You have no idea, right?
You don't know. Yeah,
Yeah. So the market might come up with things like third-party accreditation checks, right? Or you send it to a neutral mechanic, and the mechanic will tell you, yeah, don't buy this one, or you can get this one, but maybe ask them for a $2,000 discount because you need to change this and this soon, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So that's how the markets come up with ways to introduce third parties, let's say, or different structures to take away that imbalance in information, and also to get incentives a bit more aligned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like, so the way we came to this topic was through work.
Through corporate work, let's say, right?
Corporate work or any form of employment, basically, right? So
Yeah.
you are employed by some company, so you don't
Mm-hmm.
have ownership of that company.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have equity in it, so
Yep.
you don't have. You pretty much don't really care. Well, you only care to a certain degree. Of course, if the thing went bankrupt, you would lose your job, but you like there's this limitation of how good you would take care of this business and how good you would do your work if you don't have any ownership, right? Whereas instead,
Right.
if it was your business that you're starting and you had 50, 60, 70, 100% ownership, then you'd, of course, you'd have like a much higher drive to yeah, put work into it, right?
Yes.
And so like if I'm an employee, and that's kind of what big corporations try to do to motivate their employees, they give them shares in
Mm-hmm.
hoping that that will motivate them, because they then have like this to a degree like skin in the game, and that will move them more towards the principal side of this thing, right? So if we see it as this like spectrum, then on the one side you have an agent, and on the other side you have a principal. So the agent, he just does the work, he just does what he's told to do and he gets paid for it. And the principal on the other side, he's the one kind of he has the ownership and tells what to do. And I guess like in a way that's kind of how we thought about it, right? You could move someone more to, like an agent, like an employee, more towards that principal side, if that makes sense, if you give him ownership in that business by maybe paying him shares, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was that,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess idea that we have, and how we came upon that, right?
Yeah. And actually, since that conversation, I've actually thought about it a bit more. I'm not sure whether this is fact or not. It's just a gut feel, but maybe there's also a little bit to do with that information asymmetry. So when you're say you give your employees a equity in a firm, right? What that does is it aligns you from an incentives perspective, right? The company does well, you do well, we all do
Yeah,
well, we're all
yeah.
on the same side. You don't have to ask for more and more salary, because basically your stake in this firm goes up when we do well.
By contributing
So
more, yeah, or better,
correct.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't actually feel, oh man, I've had a blockbuster year. This boss better pay me more. You go, oh, I've got a blockbuster year. The company's now worth more. That's good because
Yeah,
now my shares are worth more,
my
right?
shares are worth more. Yeah.
But maybe there's also this thing about the information side of things, right? A lot of times people feel powerless or they feel more like agents when they get told very, very narrow, specific things. They're in a tunnel, right? You get told, hey, this is a box. There's some shoes there. Put as many shoes in as many boxes as you can, as fast as you can. The more you do it, the more money you earn. And if that's all you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very different from somebody going, oh, I understand that the glue in this shoe is not doing so well because when I'm packing the boxes, I see that some of the shoes are already starting to fray, right? And if you're then understanding that information and understanding who you should talk to about that problem, you're then able to act more as a principal and go and find your way in this organization. Go to somebody and go and say, hey man, maybe you should look, all these shoes we're packing, they're not good,
If you're
right?
incentived, right? Like if you only
Exactly.
get paid by the hour, you'd probably, yeah, if you're a nice person, you'd probably you might do it, but
No, but if, yeah, exactly. But if you're not
there's no
going to
benefit
stop
from you
packing
immediately.
boxes. Yeah, you
Yeah.
get paid less to go and tell somebody something.
Yeah,
They might
exactly.
kick
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
out. The
Yeah.
manager might go and say, "Hey, mind your own business.
Yeah.
Piss
Yeah.
off," right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you've lost your job.
Yeah. Because there's no
Yeah.
incentive for them to do it because they don't have ownership. But where you had like, yeah, a bit of a stake, and I think like it needs to be enough of that business, right? So I think like
Mm-hmm.
in these large corporations, so you get paid like a very small percentage of your salary in shares. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have that, it like, yeah, okay, in theory, it might incentivize you to work harder because the more work you do or the harder you work, the more you can drive the share price up. But in the big corporation, I don't know, like Google or Amazon, what can one individual really do to increase the share price, right? It's
Yeah.
it is like still you own so little, even though they pay you very well. You'll never get to that amount of ownership that say Jeff Bezos has in the company,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you'll never care as much as he does. And maybe yeah, I don't know. I can share my. We can have a look at this chart because I kind of this one here. I kind of drew it and I thought about it. Can you see it now?
Yep. So
Yeah.
in this case, token holdings would also be, let's say, similar to
Yeah.
equity
Any.
holdings,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea was like token holdings or share holdings or equity holdings or something as percentage of your net worth would,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe principal and agent are not the right terms here, but like on the left side, you care more. On the right
Mm-hmm.
side, you care little about the business or something you're doing, right? So
Yeah.
what this amount of equity as percentage of your net worth. So let's say I've got $1,000 on my bank account, and that's all I have, and 20% of that are shares in the company I'm working on. That will, yeah, already make me pretty incentivized to do something. But if I had 80, I'd like be totally keen to improve the situation of the company because then my net worth would in proportion also increase a lot more, right?
Yeah, and especially if you're somebody that's, let's say, contextualize it a bit. Let's say you're a 30-year-old and you've got, let's say, 80% of it valued at nearly $1 million. You're going to do everything you can to ensure that that gives you financial independence or stability going forward. You're not going to go, oh, I'll just check that very alarming email tomorrow, and who cares if the company blows up, right? Because, yeah, you're totally incentivized to make sure that this entity that you're so heavily invested in does well.
Yeah, you'll solve the problem immediately, and nobody has to tell you, right? Because you, so the principal in this equation doesn't have to tell you, or has to tell you less what to do, because you, in a way, become become a principal on your own, right? Because you move closer to that principal level, right? So the CEO doesn't have to
Yeah.
call you to answer that email because you know, hey man, that's my bank account too. If I don't fix that problem, it's going to be hit. And
Yeah. And
yeah,
for example, let's say smaller businesses, right? A lot of times in Asia, and I think in it's higher proportion in immigrant communities in the West, they have like these family-owned businesses, right? Where everybody does something for a certain business. And that's a organic way of ensuring that everybody's a principal, right? Everybody gets a bit of a salary. Everybody has that identity that they're involved in this firm, whether it be a restaurant or a import-export business or whatever, right? And there's that implicit, explicit trust because everybody, it's like blood, right? It's skin in the game, literally.
but if it's
And that I think,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I guess like if the distribution is fair.
Well, I've seen where the distribution, as the family grows way bigger, right? The people down the track, they get less and less, but then they think of it in terms of, okay, but one day when my dad retires,
Yeah,
he's going to give
yeah,
me his share, right?
yeah.
So there's always that continuity. They're always thinking in terms of, hey, how do I keep this ship afloat?
Because they all derive their income from it, right? They don't
Yeah,
have it from different
exactly.
sources, but they're yeah, they all derive their income from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah. So a thing that I've like found interesting in all of this, and I guess that's how we kind of tie it back to tokens, was that like how how are like DAOs, so decentralized autonomous organizations, how are they better than corporations in this? So if you pay out tokens to people, is that better than paying them money and a bit of equity, right? And so sometime mid last year, I joined the Bankless DAO, and back then it was this you had to buy like 35,000 tokens, bank tokens, and then you were allowed to join their Discord with this normal role. Now they have like guest roles and all that kind of stuff. I think back then that was like the only way to get in. So when I read that, I was like, "Ooh, yeah." So I'm gonna back then like 35,000 were like worth $700. I was like, for me, that was like, I'm like I thought about that for a while. Like, am I willing to put that money up? And because I didn't know what it was, I had no idea what the Bankless DAO was, but I was curious to find out. And so
yeah.
I eventually bought it and joined. And so when you join
And
their
what a
Discord
ride it's
server,
been.
yeah, man, up and down, back down, like recently with what's been happening. But anyway, like you have these tokens and you hold them in your wallet, and if you don't hold them anymore, immediately your authorizations to post and read stuff and engage with the community are revoked. You can't do it anymore after you've sold, right? So you really have to hold these tokens. You have to have them in your wallet to participate. Whereas in my normal job, if I sell my shares that I get paid out my equity, nobody cares. I can still come to work and do my
Yeah.
job, right? Nobody
Yeah.
keeps track of. I mean, there's some vesting schemes for some of the shares that you get paid out, but in general, no, there's nothing like that that makes you
Yeah.
hold them. So this was a really interesting concept. You kind of on this principal agents side, you immediately enter not at zero, but like at like plus zero somewhere. Not at, of course, not at 100, but like $700, right? So you'd start your job somewhere on this more towards the principal side, and that's I think a really interesting thing as compared to a normal day job, where you just show up and you'd be like completely on the agent side, right? And in most cases, you don't
Yeah.
even have equity or shares. Like, no way, right?
Very interesting. Hey, there's also this other aspect that I've just thought of now that you've mentioned it, right? Like in this case, you're actually actively asked to stake something, right? When you join your whichever company, corporate company, they'll say, hey, Flo, this is how much you're going to get paid, and this is how much you're going to get in shares, right? It's like maybe you negotiate a bit and say, I want more shares, now I want less shares, now I want to get paid more. But the idea of you losing something first to get a proportion of something else doesn't occur,
In order to work
right?
there, yeah. So you,
Yeah. But
yeah,
when you
yeah,
stake something, you're actually making a decision and you're proclaiming something, right? You're saying, I, individual ABC, identity, avatar, whatever, decides to put some real life value here and put it in this same caravan as you guys, right? And I'm going to go on the ride with you. I'm going to go on a
yeah.
ride with you and see where this goes. And there's this really good book called Influence by Cialdini, I think, and he talks about like how the different things that make people, let's say, influence people's behaviors. Right. One of them
Yeah.
is consistency. So if you have made a decision as a human being, most of us, unless we're psychopaths, most of us try to subconsciously, we try to be consistent with the decisions we've made in the past, right? So the fact that you have decided to stake something gives you something running in the back of your operating system to say, hey, I'm invested. I need this thing to do well, right? When you
Unconsciously,
sell
yeah,
your
yeah.
yeah, when you sell your company shares that they've given to you as part of your pay package, there's that mechanism doesn't go on in the back of your head because you never really said, I want to give up 2 months salary now. Don't pay me for 2 months. Don't pay me for 6 months. Give me shares, right? You never said that in the first place. So dropping those shares is not something that's that difficult to do from a consistency basis.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And yeah, I guess like the other thing maybe that you have to think about is like the size and the scale at which that applies. So in smaller companies, of course, shares would be worth more because you like your work has more impact on how the business goes. Whereas in
Mm-hmm.
a huge business, your individual work that you put in doesn't have as much of an impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just yeah,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
you're
The
one out of
leverage you have.
100,000, and if
Yeah.
you're one out of 10, there's a lot more that you can move the needle by doing something, and that of course kind of flows into that as well. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, um, that is something. Yeah,
And maybe a way to solve that problem when an organization gets too big is, let's say you're at Google and I'm just imagining, right? I've never worked at such a big corporation before, but let's say you're there and you're working on something really innovative, but you're not that incentivized to do it because then you feel like, if I do this thing, I'm going to spend a lot of time, burn many weekends, and at the end I might lose control of it because my manager will take it over, whatever, right? Maybe these companies, I guess they already do, right? They encourage spin-offs where they would invest in your new idea, where you then become a founder somewhere, right? But Google is already part of that or whichever big company that's sponsoring you as an employee. As you go do a spin-off somewhere, they're invested in that new firm. So in that way, they try and get around this problem again by ensuring that they have equity in whatever their um, employees are doing, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
they remain a principal, and they want their employees to become a principal. They become an
yeah,
owner,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the idea. Yeah, they kind of become VCs, right? They give them they give capital, but then still both because I think like what still matters is this is like the the holdings that you have as percentage of your net worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if like Elon Musk, um, if he puts 1 million into a business, like he's not going to
Mm-hmm.
care much, right?
No.
That's going to be like a tiny little side project. It's like me
Mm-hmm.
putting $1 into this thing here somewhere into a business, right? I don't care
Mm-hmm.
if the dollar is
Mm-hmm.
lost. But
Mm-hmm.
if I have 1 million and I put 1 million in, well, yeah, I'm pretty interested in that
Yeah.
working out, right?
Yeah. And I guess that's how these actors or parties with a lot of capital, they want to ensure that the whoever's working for them even if they go into something as equal partners, right? They want to try and make it so that this younger or less rich, let's say, less resourced person or entity will have a very large proportion of their net worth in this new venture. So Elon
Yeah.
Musk would say, all right, I will invest 1 million only if you invest 1 million as well, and that million should be all your money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. As like, yeah, higher percentage of your net worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that gets you the far, like the furthest onto the principal side, knowing that yeah, you probably put in the best amount of your work into the
Yeah,
whole
it's
thing, right?
basically saying I'll back you, but I need your skin in the game. That's it.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, maybe I'll go back to this bankless DAO thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so then, I had to buy these tokens and then I joined. And after I've joined, and that's something I found like really interesting again, like comparing that to uh, a normal work job relationship that you have, right? So I buy these
Mm-hmm.
tokens and then I just show up in this community and I was like, okay, like, is there anybody going to interview me for some role, or somebody going to talk to me about my skills, or um, what I'm going to do? Nothing. There's nothing. Nobody did anything. Now they've changed that slightly. They have somebody like a talent coordinator at least reaches out to you and has a chat with you. But in general, it
Mm-hmm.
was just like me showing up. And then there was this project going on with a newsletter. They wanted to write a newsletter. And I just raised my hand and said, like, I want to do it. And at first the guys are like, yeah, let's have a chat first. We want to know if you can do this. And they kind of, by having a conversation, they found out that I had knowledge in this field. And then they just gave me the thing, trusted me, and I did it. I wrote it, they edited it, I published it. And then that went on for some time, and the more work I put in, the more reputation and trust I kind of had in this whole thing. And that's something that's like really uncorrelated to tokens. But what also happened that for each of these gigs, I got some of these bank tokens, right? Or some of their tokens paid out, so that I accumulated more and more of those. And of course, I didn't need to hold them because the threshold was 35,000, but I got paid more and more while I was writing stuff and producing and working with them. But I didn't need to hold them, but I still kind of held on to them. And that was something that was kind of interesting because
It sounds very interesting to me. Like to
yeah,
understand the psychology behind why you're holding it, right?
yeah, that whole like
That's
yeah, that whole drive
magic
of
there. Yeah.
what, like in comparison to a normal job where you just would apply and then you do your job from 9 to 5, get paid and leave. Like to a degree, like you don't really care as much in the normal
Mm-hmm.
job as compared to where you join in something like that, where it is so open and you just prove yourself through the work you do. And
Mm-hmm.
and all you get paid is equity basically, right? Because the payment medium is also equity. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't get any dollars. I only get these bank tokens. And so I can of course I can change them back into dollars, but you get paid in them. So you hold more and more of that, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
just like these super interesting dynamics, and I can't really get my head around it yet. Well, how that works or why that is the case, but I think it has something to do with tokens.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I'm sure it has, right? Because it's so rationally it doesn't make sense. How is this thing? How are we sacrificing our time and efforts for something that was just created out of thin air, right?
Yeah,
Besides the fact that this thing created out of thin air is part of the infrastructure of a system that produces work, that produces value,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I've done this flow diagram. So, I've, as part of the articles, I've done a lot of these other diagrams where I kind of map out the solution architecture. But recently I've seen one of these and I thought it would be a good idea to maybe display it in this way. So what I was thinking, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be the bankless DAO, but like you have this DAO, and from the DAO's perspective, I try to, with these arrows, represent value flowing in and out. So you'd have this DAO, and the DAO would pay members in tokens for work they do, and value flows out, right? So they pay some bank, member gets that, holds that, or does whatever, sells it. And on the other hand, the member would, like myself here, in this case, I just drew this in to, fit it to the example, but like you'd buy tokens for membership. So you would transfer some of your value that you had, some of your dollars maybe that you have transferred into bank, and you would transfer them into your wallet in a way, but you would commit that. It's not really that you give it to them, but you kind of, I don't know how to say it, but you hold them in a way. Maybe this arrow is not really right in the picture, but I just thought of it that way. And then what you also do, you contribute work as a member, right? So I personally, working as part of this writers team, I wrote content about tokenomics, and I got that content edited and published on their platform, and they would tweet about it, right? So their brand and following then got access to my content, and I personally got access to the brand and the following, right, to the audience. So and there's all sorts of members, right? There's members that develop software. They might create some tools and develop stuff, write down knowledge, and others that might work on polishing and improving the branding and all that, right? So all of that value is kind of created, but since they don't pay any dividend, and the value, or like let's say like the price of the token, but I don't really know how that's related to it, right? Because that doesn't really, does that create demand for holding the token? I guess like it depends on the design of the ecosystem, but from a content let's go with Bankless DAO, right? For the content, they don't have any paywall. You can just read it. Everybody can read it. For the brand, they don't have any paywall for that. For the software, they produce some like interesting DAO bots and things like that for other DAOs. But like, I don't think they get paid in Bankless tokens for that. They probably get paid in any other stablecoin probably. So I was trying to think like how that would, in some way, this value would how is that connected to the token? That's a question that I'm still chewing on, sort of how that relates to it, So all that value is kind of captured in this DAO, and like, because the people work on the same thing, and I guess the principal agent theory comes in here because most of these members on this spectrum that we have are like more on the principal side, and
they believe, let's say, in what the DAO's trying to do.
Yeah, they believe in the mission and
right,
and maybe work towards these common goals of whatever the DAO might have as a goal, right?
Yeah.
But still, that doesn't create any more demand for the token, other than bringing new members in. But still, somehow, I don't know, what would happen to the token price? Would it like flatline at some point because there's no members coming, no new members coming in?
Yeah, at some point, I guess the price, at some point, when an outsider that does not contribute work, right, but still decides to be a member because he likes the work that the community is doing, then he buys in to go along for the ride. Is that possible? Like, could you buy tokens and
anybody? Yeah. They're just like public traded. You can go to Uniswap, you can buy them.
You don't have to do work to qualify to buy them, right? It's more like you buy them if you want to do work, right?
But in that case, you're like only an investor, right? You're like only somebody who, I guess.
Yeah. But in a way, I would say, let's not think about only the super duper uber rich Jeff Bezos types, right? For most of us, investing in something also means putting energy in, because that money actually means a lot to us. And if we put that energy, basically money is a call on energy, right? Energy spent in the past, and you trust that in the future it will buy you back something that required roughly the same amount of energy
Yeah.
to create or to make, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's human energy,
That's a really nice way to
solar
think about it.
energy. Yeah,
Money's a call on energy.
yeah. So for somebody that basically maybe to some person, they get to think, is my energy worth more in a DAO or in a cryptocurrency or in a stable coin or in a fiat currency, you know, or to purchase another home, in the real world. And if they feel like, hey, I believe in what this DAO is trying to do, I'm happy to put my energy into this DAO because it's a mission that I believe in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't, yes, it is investing, but maybe more as investing as a principal rather than just as an agent, because they maybe really believe in the mission.
Hmm. But I could do the same with shares, right? I could buy Google shares because I believe in their mission.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think exactly. But who knows? Maybe with the because we're in such an early stage of things. Um, yeah, a little bit means a lot in these spaces, right? Compared to you put $1 million in Google versus $1 million worth of tokens in a DAO, it probably. Maybe in this case, would it also buy you voting rights for certain
Oh yeah,
things?
totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that could be it as well,
yeah,
right? Like you're putting money in to get influence or power over a
on the
certain.
treasury, yeah, or on
Yeah,
like how the whole thing works, right? And
yeah,
I kind of also see it as like again, like a call option, right? So you have these
hmm,
tokens of this DAO, and you see that there's so many talented um, and curiosity-driven people, members in this DAO, contributing to all sorts of stuff, and
yeah,
who knows, they might come up with the next unicorn that they
yeah,
invent, and that's then gonna, I don't know, drive like a huge demand for that token because whatever they're gonna do with it, right?
yeah. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
call option is a good way of thinking about it because in this case, you have an option that doesn't really expire, right? It expires when the DAO dies. But besides
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? And as
Yeah.
long as you know that the treasury is not going to inflate it to the moon,
There's a
you
fixed supply. Yeah.
feel, yeah, you feel relatively, let's say, happy to safe to say, oh, I'm happy to buy this call option,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
especially when you're faced. I think something that's maybe not often talked about, right? It's a very macro, but to pull it back, if you were an average person earning an okay income and you had some extra money to put aside every month, and in the traditional world, you've got, do you want to put money into a bank that you might feel is over leveraged, where they promise you with inflation rate of 5, 10, whatever percent, your money's going to be worth less? Why wouldn't that drive, money going into these tokens where it's a call option on, human effort going into the future, right? It's like a duration play almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and that's the way to think about it. That and it's a social token, and I think these social tokens are all about the people who align behind some common goal, right? It's
Hmm.
and that's all that matters, and I think that's what makes it different to evaluate them in terms of like price or value, because it's hard to measure something like that. You don't know until you maybe have been in the community and been part of it, why these people are special, who these people are, and how they work together on a common goal using that token, or that token kind of supports that, right? Because
Yeah. And
somehow it wasn't possible before. That's what I'm thinking about, right? Like this whole movement that we're seeing, that there's more and more people joining DAOs because they can work on something that they're interested in. So the way I always think about it is like, it's like freelancing, right? So if you're a freelancer, you're mostly out on your own, right? You have to search for clients maybe on Upwork and Fiverr, and you have to go out there and search for your clients, and then you do the project. And
Mhm.
in this DAO setting, I feel like you're like a freelancer, but you have a community, and
Mhm.
you can there's still, it's all loose ties, right? I've never signed a contract with Bankless DAO. I have the tokens, and if I don't like it tomorrow, I'll sell all my tokens and I'm out. But like the interesting concept is that I can join this DAO or any other DAO as this freelancer, and I can contribute my work, or we could work on something. I can work on something with interesting people together, and it's kind of like grouped and incentivized by these tokens. And that's something that's like new, that didn't exist before. And just for me, like from this like future of work perspective, that is something that's so interesting.
Yeah. Actually, when you mentioned that, it made me think of, like the traditional unions, like the auto workers
Yeah, yeah.
union, and that's like very, I would say that those unions are rather centralized, right? So
Hmm.
maybe when you work for a DAO, it's like you're part of a union, but like a cool union, like you're associated by not the demands that you put onto the market via threats, but you're basically associated with other people that, according to your work, according to your output, according to what you believe in, according to where you find meaning, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and yeah, it's in a way you're joining a tribe. And the cool thing is with DAOs, you can join many different tribes. You
yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
be working
And you get
on,
paid in compared to unions, right?
yeah, exactly. Because I guess, yeah, for union, you join a union because you're worried about, again, this principal agent problem, and then you want someone to stand above you and speak for you to fight for your rights,
Yeah,
because you don't have as much information as you should have to negotiate, right? So you basically
because you're on your
outsource.
own. Yeah,
Yeah, so you give away that right to some position of authority to say, hey, you tell me when I can work, I'll work, but you fight for the best hourly
yeah,
rate for me, let's say,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's super interesting. Like, so just to show you maybe what they've achieved, I found this tweet. I know, I'm writing an article about tokenomics of bankless DAOs. That's why I've kind of looked all this up. Like this guy, Lucas, he's I think one of the co-founders of Bankless DAO, and he wrote this up, what the Bankless DAO has achieved in season 2, and he says so because of social tokens and how so he says, like, I'm reading this, it's insane what a community can achieve when incentivized with ownership. So this kind of perfectly fits into what we're talking about, right? So you give the community ownership in this whole venture with tokens, and then you align them behind some common goal, but then
Yeah.
you let them do something that they want to do, right? So this is yeah, I guess is something really, really interesting. We're getting a delivery here.
No, sorry, something just fell off. One of my
Oh,
posters just fell off the wall.
oh shit. So
But
anyway, I was just saying, yeah.
what does he mean by season two for us that
Oh
are
yeah.
uninitiated?
I mean, think about it as a quarter. I don't know why they use season. They just confuse the shit out of everybody. It's
So
yeah,
like a
it's
quarter of
a
a year?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
and then again, like DAOs might use different durations for seasons, but
Right.
I think in most cases, I think also for the bankless DAO, season is a quarter, just like a
And okay,
financial
and
year
is
is, or a
that
year has.
common speak in the world of tokens and tokenomics seasons?
Yeah, like it's also new. I think that's somebody's come up with it, and that's why a lot of DAOs are using it. But I think
We should
you might
come
as
up
well
with a
just call it
dictionary,
quarter. Yeah. There's a lot
tokenomics
of
dictionary.
crazy stuff that's in here. But yeah,
Okay.
it's like um to go through this, right? They've got like 4,500 holders.
Most widely held, huh?
Yeah, yeah, most widely held token. And yeah, they've got like some partnerships with other DAOs where they have acquired liquidity from Olympus DAO that they now own, and that liquidity allows them a source of income. So it's
Hmm.
not just that they only get, if we go back to this value flow diagram, that they only get their tokens uh, from like people buying them, and that they only have bank tokens in their treasury because they minted them. But what they try to do, they try to diversify, right? So that they might get paid. So if we at Bankless DAO, we write a piece for a client, that client will pay us, and the author and the editor, of course, get the lion's share of that. But a small percentage also goes to the Bankless DAO treasury and to other departments for the kind of the work and the brand that they're lending and that they're supporting, and that kind of builds up that treasury of the Bankless DAO or of any other DAO in that matter. And if you hold the tokens, you have voting rights on what to happen with that, right? And then they have all these other crazy initiatives. So they've done this, like, if you're into NFTs, they've did this DAO Punks t-shirts that are like part of NFTs. They generated like 88 ETH. That's a lot with that, right? They've got different media publications. So one that I think is really cool, they've got this, it's called The Rug, which is like a satire magazine, kind of like the Bumblebee, about crypto. So the community just came together and launched this thing, right? On this, just incentivized by tokens. So it's super cool. They just come up with this, and they publish it. This is super high quality. It looks really, really good. And they mint these as NFTs. So you can buy a copy of them, right? So they came out with that. And then, I don't know, they launched this like index for like an index fund for basically DeFi tokens. They did this bot, a couple of bots that the Bankless DAO dev team built to support DAOs. They did this merch. Like they really like produce, they had these like shorts, like swim shorts and stuff that they produce, and they mint as NFTs, or that you can buy from them, and people buy it. And so there's like all these avenues. It feels like everybody just comes into this DAO, buys in, shows up, and then just naturally follows their curiosity and interest in what they like doing. And that's something that's like so cool. I don't know if all these people make like a full living of it, but it's, on the one side, I think it's like interesting enough for them to keep doing it in their free time. And for others, maybe it's enough to make a living, especially if there's income streams from outside. And if they made 88 ETH with these DAO Punk NFTs, like somebody must have gotten something from that. Maybe it's not a full salary, but I can see that if we go back to these call options, if I have call options on this thing, I can see that in some season down the road, something interesting might come out of this that be like super valuable, add a lot of value to the whole ecosystem, and make it worth all the work that you put in.
Yeah. And it's like creativity unleashed, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, it's funded by capital where people are not going to get too hurt if they lose it, right? You've put in work, you've written an article, you get paid.
Yeah.
If you lose what you get paid, you still have that article that you wrote, and that call option didn't actually cost you, like that sacrifice you made. It's not like
costs some time, right?
Yeah, it's your time, but it's not like you're going to be on the street sleeping in the cold, right? Because you made that investment.
Yeah.
Which, in a way, it's a beautiful thing, because it's like taking excesses in resources, right? And basically saying, let's try and hit home runs, right? Call options are home runs, right? And you're saying, hey, take this excess. It's okay. I'm gonna give it to you, and I want you to swing hard, right? Go for the home runs. When you compare that to the centralized systems that we have today, it's like, all right, I'm gonna go tax people as an authority in government, right? And I'm gonna take that money and I'm gonna do like a state-run initiative to try and do something creative, right?
Yeah, enforce creativity, sort of. You got to be creative now. Yeah.
Exactly. But in this case, I'm taxing the poor person that's just trying to make ends meet. I'm going to tell them, hey, your tax bill next year is going to go up because we need to get creative.
Yeah.
You know, and they lose resources that they can hardly bear to lose, right?
Yeah.
So, and oftentimes it's done in an inefficient way. Whenever creativity gets mandated, it's usually not very creative, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, totally. And that's what I like about this. Like, and some, I it's probably not fully, you can not fully ascribe this to tokens, but in some way, I think this is due to it, that people come in here, they just show up, they're willing to fork out whatever it costs to get these 35,000 tokens, and then they
Mm.
hold them, and then they show up and do work. They just
Mhm.
add value to this thing, and it's like it gets more and more valuable over time with like all the stuff they produce.
Very elegant, right? If you think about it, nothing really comes close to it in the from the past, right?
Yeah, like you couldn't find that in the normal world, normal economy. There's no such thing as like an open business where you could show up and you could just collaborate with random people
Yeah.
on something. Like, how would you align incentives? How do you make sure that everybody is like more on the principal side than on the agent side? And
Mm.
that's what I really think is this. Like, you hear a lot of these like crypto and Web3 critics, and that's something I think a lot of them are just like missing, this piece of the puzzle, that it connects people to do something that they're curious about. Of course they need to get paid, and they have to have to earn something, but like
Yeah.
the I mean, we'd all agree that the value that you create, or you do your best work if you're not forced to do anything. I think that's like this, that's like something that everybody has, right? So if I don't have to work, and I can just do whatever I want, then I come up with, yeah, out of boredom. I'll be bored for a while, maybe I'll do nothing for a while, but after some time I'll sit down and do something that I like, and then I
Right.
produce something really cool. And if it's two or three of us that are kind of bored, then we'll produce something really awesome. And I think that's really something.
Yeah. Exactly. So in this case, right, with a DAO, it seems like in the past, if you wanted to found something, you'd have to go around looking for people. Then you go and try and raise money, which is painful. When you raise money, you have to sell equity, and then the people that are allowed to invest in you are usually only accredited investors at the start,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, same, yeah,
So the normal mom and pop or the average graduate who probably would love to get invested can't.
yeah,
But yeah, and in this case, you can get, in a way, hundreds of founders, right? Everyone working to make this mission work,
yeah,
and they're all invested,
yeah,
right? And they
yeah,
know everyone that's in there, or they know, let's say, they know more of the people and their work ethic than, say, what we would know of how Google or Microsoft runs now, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because yeah, so when we ask, hey, how come people are willing to put 35,000 tokens up there to be part of this thing? I mean, I might know Flo, and I think Flo's good at writing, and I want to be part of what he's a part of, so I'm happy to back him, right? But I don't have that option when I'm going to go invest in public markets right now because I'm not an accredited investor. I
yeah,
don't get to go rub shoulders with everybody at the early stages, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's another thing that it all enables, right? This early entry for everybody, like levels
yeah,
the playing field almost.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Again, it's really about this information asymmetry and aligning of incentives, right? It's always these two things.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, like the
And
information was kind of there for everybody anyway, right? I can look up any startup that's up there, but I'm not allowed to invest.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And you compare, let's say, you now joining some Discord group versus back in the day, I needed to maybe fly to California if I wanted to know what Steve Jobs was up to, right? Like
yeah,
now I
yeah,
can just join a Discord group, have joined into these video calls, listen to this guy and go like, freaking hell, this guy's a genius. I want to be part of this thing, right?
yeah, yeah. And then you just show up in his community and you say hi, um, do some work, and then yeah, that might land you a job. And yeah, jobs as such don't really exist anymore. I mean, there's
It's
some
more like gigs,
communities
all
that,
right? It's more
yeah,
like
yeah, but
pieces
joint
of
gigs,
work. Yeah.
yeah, And that's what I love about it. I mean, that's what excites me so much about it. Gives everybody the flexibility to sort of do what they want, and then do it as much as they want to. But if they don't feel it anymore, they just they can just stop doing it, right?
Yeah, and I think you're right. You hit a good point just now when you said that people that are critics of or they poo-poo the Web3 work. Yeah, maybe it is something that they're missing because they don't see or feel this difference in behavior that humans naturally have when you change ownership structures, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like the
And
psychology changes, like the way you interact changes.
the way you operate changes. It's almost
Yeah,
like you have a different
yes.
OS, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
ask the average, I don't know, babysitter or kindergarten teacher how they interact with a kid versus their own kids, right?
yeah,
I would
yeah,
say there is some difference, you know. Good ones would not have a big difference,
yeah,
but on a whole, there would be a
yeah,
difference. If there's a fire, you would put money on, you'd kind of bet on who that person's going to run in to pull out, right?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of things come from that, I think. Um, yeah. Maybe we can finish it up with this
Shout out to
interesting
principal agent
to
on
principal
Twitter.
agent. Yeah. So, because I'm not a native speaker, I announced this tweet, this podcast, and wrote principal the wrong way with a PLE. And then there's this really funny bot on Twitter that picks that up. And the bot has a Simpsons Skinner profile picture, and it's called principal agent, spelled the wrong way. And so whenever you spell principal agent the wrong way, he'll show up and tell you how to spell it the right way. And yeah, I just love how what Twitter, what people are on Twitter, what stuff's on Twitter. So cool bot.
Very
Um,
cool. Flo and I had a good
Made
laugh
my day
about it
there.
today.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else we want to say to close this up?
I just wanted to share, like, before having the talk, coming on the show, I went and listened to Naval Ravikant talk about the principal agent problem, and he gave a few cool quotes, right? Like he said, Charlie Munger said, "If you can be working on incentives, don't work on anything else,"
Yeah.
right? And I think when it comes to tokenomics, in a way, that's really where the magic is, right? If you get that formula right, everything just runs on autopilot and you get magic happening. You get that
Yeah.
formula wrong and nothing moves, you know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
then start to think, should I put more money here? What do I do? Do I need to call people? You know, it's not organic. It's like you're pushing stuff uphill.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a big part of tokenomics, I would say, would definitely be this structuring of incentives, coding aside, and what the treasury does, etc. They all tie into this. But really, when it comes down to it, we're talking about incentivizing people to
Yeah.
create,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can like use these incentives to get them into this flow mode of creativity, that's I think a pretty cool achievement. Because then really like
Exactly.
this DAO, and that's insane. They just mint the token, then they airdrop them to a couple of people, and now the whole thing is in this flow mode where people do what they love doing and create value in some way.
Yeah. I
And
think
it runs on
that's,
autopilot, like you said. Yeah.
yeah. And it's literally an ecosystem, right? When you look at what an ecosystem is, it's really everything running in balance.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to keep forcing things, they just go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe tokenomics can, mine that magic somehow just by getting that incentive structure balance right.
Yeah. 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 I think that's what every um I guess model should aim for.
Hmm.
Get Charlie Munger happy.
We don't have much time, right? How old's the guy?
Oh, I don't know. Very old. Yeah.
He might live to 150 though.
Approaching 100. Who knows? Yeah, maybe he's into longevity, things like that. Who knows? All right.
So that was super fun, Flo.
Yeah, as usual.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah, I
for
think
the
like
insights and the
interesting
time.
topic we've discovered, and yeah, thanks all for listening. And yeah, we hope to talk about something else soon. We'll find out what. We'll let you know.
Yep.
Thanks everyone, and thanks Jason.
See yas.
Bye.